Welcome to Magny Cours in the Nevers region, the southwest of Paris, the Midi region of France, for the first LG Super Racing weekend of 2002. And accustomed as they are to the bright sunny weather, the team's thoroughly enjoying themselves these opening couple of days. We're ready to go racing. Stay with us here on Eurosport. This, of course, is the home of the French Grand Prix, the Magny Cours circuit. It's a combination of high-speed straights and fast corners and some really slow stuff as well. The famous Adelaide hairpin, the Lycée hairpin that ends the lap. Estoril, a fast sweeping corner. But there are two other chicanes as well, the Chateau d'Eau and the Nürburgring chicanes that really test the cars. Well, on the programme, race-wise for Saturday, the opening race in the Formula Renault 2000 Euro Cup Championship. Also qualifying the Super Pole for the top 6 GT and NGT cars in the FIA GT Series. And we'll be looking at the first qualifying session for the new European Touring Car Championship. But for those of you who have never come across it before, the LG Super Racing Weekend was launched officially this afternoon at Magny Cours by Angelo Cornignoni, Eurosport's Chief Executive Officer, and the rest of the organisers involved from the sponsorship and from the competition side. Eurosport's CEO saying that the thought behind the Super Racing Weekend is that apart from Formula 1 there is no really pan-European championship for motor racing. The role of the touring cars is to bring together cars that the public own and drive in a modified form, obviously, for racing. The competition then not only in the marketplace but also on the racetrack. And the title as well, the European Touring Car Championship, it's not just a national series. He's reiterating bringing together drivers from many different nationalities. And this year, the second year of Super Racing Weekend, the title sponsor, LG Electronics. Mathieu Bourque is the French marketing director of LG Electronics, and he's saying it makes so much sense for us. We are well known in over 14 European countries, and it's a great way of spreading our name, bringing ourselves very much to the fore, associating ourselves with the excitement of motor racing, and of course a huge fan base not only in the TV viewers but those who come to the tracks as well. And for us it's logical. New technology is very much our business. Well, new technology and old meeting at the Magny Cours circuit. Brand new championships, brand new cars, and some familiar faces too. Welcome back to Magny Cours for the opening race in the LG Super Racing Weekend, or the opening race weekend. First round in the FIA GT Championship. The action starts with qualifying and then Super Pole. Top 6 GT cars, top 6 NGT cars. First out is the 6th fastest of the GT cars, Bobby Verdon-Rowe, driving in the Lister Storm. 6 in practice, just squeezing in to the Super Pole run. And Bobby setting his time as the first of the GT cars to go. Right behind him in the number 2 Labra competition, Viper. Labra 2 years ago had 2 Porsches in NGT. Last year Porsche in NGT and Viper in GT. This year they now have 2 Vipers in the GT category. This car, the number 2 machine, sister car to the championship winners Carl Rosenblad, the Swede, but it's Vincent Vos, the Belgian, who's peddling it here in the Super Pole. Now Jamie, the one disadvantage that the Labra team have is their Michelin tyres in Super Pole, because they take, particularly the fronts, even with the heavy engines out there, the Viper, they take 2 or 3 laps to really come into full racing temperature, and that may hinder them a little bit more than for the other shod cars with Pirelli or Dunlop tyres.
Yeah, I believe that they're possibly able to use tyre warmers for this year, but it's still not bringing the tyre up to the absolute full racing temperature, so they're going to be slightly better, I'd say, this season. But again, if they're struggling still to get the tyre temperature into the front, then it makes it very, very difficult for these Super Pole situations.
Well, now the Superpole sets the positions for the top 12 starters. So the 6 fastest NGT cars start ahead of all the other GT cars who didn't make it into the Superpole run. So this is actually quite important. The weather is good, so we're unlikely to see an NGT car on pole. That normally happens if it's cold, wet and rainy, where their lower power but almost equal top speed means that they actually have a traction advantage over the big, extra powerful Vipers, Listers and so on. But here, a little late into the corner there, wasn't he?
Yeah, he just snatched the inside wheel as he turned in. It just managed to just push the car just slightly wide, but I don't think it cost him too much time because the start line is just after the corner.
Tricky corner as well, that one, because you're coming high speed downhill through some sweeping S's. Now, this is Philippe Alliot in a brand new car to the series, his Ferrari 550 Maranello, run by Jean-Pierre Jabouille, the ex-Formula 1 driver. But the team, well, Alliot left the garage but didn't leave the pit lane, turned left back into the paddock. He had some problem with it. Incidentally, the car did go out in the end of qualifying, so they did manage to fix whatever it was that was wrong with it. But that meant that next up was Fabio Bobini. No, not in an NGT Porsche as he was last year. Won his class in Le Mans, won the class in racing in the GT Championship a couple of times as well in a Porsche. But he is now moved up to the big boys. He's in a GT Viper, as you can see, and one of the 2 Belmondo cars. Paul Belmondo Racing running a pair of cars, both of them on Pirelli tyres. And Jamie, one of the things you notice from the onboard shots of the Viper is that there are a number of different setups of gearboxes. Most of the Vipers now gone to sequential. You can see, look, he's got that little, what we're used to seeing, super touring style T-bar there right by his knee that he can push forward to change down and pull backwards to change up. But there are a number of different solutions. There are a couple of different of gearboxes you can use in the Vipers. So the onboard shots will show us various different teams using various different solutions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the sequential situation, I'd imagine that they have a flat shift on the car as well, so that they can just hold the throttle full throttle and just change gear as they're going up, so losing very, very minimal time. And obviously this situation is a good one for them.
It makes for a little bit of extra lap speed, and just tends to be a little easier on the engine as well, because as in Formula 1, when you've got that power upshift, it tends to manage the engine revs. It's much harder to buzz the engine when you don't have a manual gearbox. So although they tend to be a little bit more expensive, the manual gearboxes, sequentials do tend to keep your engine rebuild costs a little lower. So it's kind of chicken and, well, not chicken and egg thing, but a good balance between one and the other. So Fabio Bobini, second quickest in the Viper. Didn't quite manage to match Vincent Vos, excuse me. I've got my annual cold coming on. But a little bit ahead of Bobby Verden-Rowe. Now don't forget, each car, as we see them, is coming to the line at the end of a warm-up lap. So should be reasonably up to speed. And they have this one flying lap to set a time. Of course, they are going in reverse order of how fast they were in qualifying. So the fastest goes last. Christophe Bouchou, often in that position as we came to Superpole in 2001, but this year he's been beaten, at least in normal qualifying, by Jamie Campbell-Walter's Lister.
He definitely looked like he was struggling with understeer as he was coming onto the straight there. You could just see he was trying to stab the throttle to try and get the rear to brake a bit, but it just kept pushing the front on, so that obviously hampered his exit speed onto the straight.
The Labre competition team, one of France's most successful sports car racing outfits in their national championships and in now the FIA GT. They are the reigning teams champions and, of course, have the reigning drivers champion in Christophe Bouchou. He stays with the team this year, sharing with David Terrian, who himself is a reigning champion in the FIA series. He was with Christian Pescatore in the NGT winning driver lineup in the Ferrari 360 Modena, a car now particularly warm to Jamie's heart, since he's driving one in the British Series. And in fact, we will talk over Bouchou, but Jamie, awful lot of new little tweaks in the 2002 cars, of which there are a pair in the 4-car lineup at JMB that you're looking forward to seeing when your new car arrives next week.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we have a new car which is turning up hopefully next week, and I'm looking very much forward to driving that one and just seeing what extra little tweaks we have for the remaining season.
Well, Bouchou goes fastest then, sliding it across the curbs out of the final corner. And as he goes onto his slowing down lap, the fastest man in practice, Jamie Campbell-Walter, fires the Lister out of the Lycée hairpin and across the line to start his lap. As you say, the finish line is almost right under the starter's tower, even before you get off the exit curbs, it seems, out of that final corner. So lap starts very early. But the Lister changing this year to Dunlop tyres. They race on Dunlop in Britain, but they have been racing on Michelin in the FIA series. Michelin have pulled pretty much out of supplying most of the teams in this championship. Dunlop very keen indeed to get the Listers working well on their cars. It seems on their tyres been working very, very well indeed. The team really enjoying the level of grip they've got. So. Yeah, and Jamie looking pretty neat and tidy as well. Yeah,
this is looking like a good lap. He had a very good exit onto the straight. The front of the car seemed to be working a lot better than the Viper. As long as Jamie can hold this together, I think that we're going to be seeing a P1 here.
Well, very experienced with the team, with the car. Numerous changes, detail changes under the skin to the Lister over the winter. Last year they really concentrated on driver comfort above all. This year, moving on a little bit. In fact, Jamie's got an engine development working, new Motec management system as well on the car. She's got a little bit more horsepower than the Bobby Verdon Rowe car at the moment. And running pretty trimmed out wing as well. Got a good high-speed setup. Christophe Bouchou in the Labra car is mimsing along in front of him, which is a little unfair, but he should not be a hindrance, just a little bit of a distraction, and Jamie probably will be going, that French guy again in the way. But he comes across the line as fastest in Superpole, so no miscues by Lister. Yes, good start to the season. Last year, Monza, the first race, both cars made the Superpole runoff, and neither of them quite could be bothered to leave the pits. So Jamie Campbell-Walter starts this year's first race from pole.
It's good. The car was working well this morning, and obviously it's very nice this year to have the tyre warmers, which makes the Superpole a lot easier, but no problems to report. The car was very nice and pleased to be on pole.
Looking into the NGT class now. This is a new team, JVG Racing. Who are they? If I tell you that lead driver is Jürgen von Gartzen, you get where the JVG comes from. He shares that car with Ian Khan. They're 6th in NGT. Philip Pater, just back after an enormous Super Cup shunt at Imola, got the green light to drive this morning from the medics. Philip Pater shares that car, the 58 machine run by Auto Orlando with Toto Wolff. And now into Ferrari territory for JMB Racing. It's like a one-make series there, Garage, Jamie Davis. 4 360 Modeners in so near identical livery. I have no idea how we're going to tell them apart in long shot. This number 53 car for the Swiss, Iraj Alexander, Dutchman Peter Kuterman, and Giambattista Pregliasco, who for reasons of fitting him on the car is now called Batty. No Ali G style references there. Andrea Bertolini, whose day job is road testing cars for Ferrari, road cars, now gets to race one at the weekend as well, the 51 car. He shares with Andrea Gabbagnati, another stalwart of the JMB lineup. They are 3rd in the NGT class. This is the man who takes 2nd for us. Let's ride on board with Chris Fisher, Christian Pescatori in the lead entry. He is the reigning champion. Jamie, I'm sure you'd have been a fraction quicker through there. Looks like he's noncing about a bit, but good chance to listen to the engine of the car from those onboard shots. We've got half a dozen onboard cameras, 2 in the NGT class, 4 in GT, but this year's engine, actually, it was funny, we were talking to Stefan Ortelli, the Porsche driver, this afternoon, just after lunch, and he was saying, you know, even the new Ferrari engine, it's got about 30 extra horsepower, Ferrari, so he said, but it just sounds so much nicer, much more like a 550 engine. He said, so you really know it's you know, a much better development of the engine. Yeah,
it's actually a very nice car to drive. The balance of the car feels quite nice, for the car which I drive in Britain anyway. It's the car is built by Michelotto in Italy, and basically it's a very fast car. It's taken the competition to Porsche. and I'm hoping to have some good success in England this year, and obviously the JMB squad are hoping so too in FIA series.
Well, of course, British fans will be able to see the FIA GT series twice this year in Britain. Next race is the weekend of the 5th of May at Silverstone, a fortnight from now. 6th of October is the race at Donington Park, but also next weekend, Saturday FIA GT, Sunday British GTs at Silverstone. So if you're any kind of a sports car racing fan, you'd better not be at home having a barbecue in 2 weeks' time. You better be at Silverstone.
I just caught a shot then of as Pescatori was breaking into that chicane there, that the fuel light was on just just underneath his right hand now. You just see it lighting again there, so obviously they're running the car very light to get the best time out of it.
Absolutely so. If you're doing 3 laps, you don't need 4 laps worth of fuel. And finally, the fastest man in practice. Perhaps a little bit of a surprise in the Freisinger Motorsport Porsche. This is still a 2001 car. The 2002 car has been developed by Porsche, but not allowed to run it in this series because you're only allowed to change your car every 2 years in the FIA rules, which means the wider track they're not allowed to use, and the extra engine developments they're not allowed to use either. But actually, he's saying that on the Dunlop tyres they've got a very, very nicely balanced car, and well, very hopeful, Stefano Ortelli, of taking the battle to the Ferraris, and as he's shown by being fastest in qualifying, certainly been able to do that. Good one-lap exponent as well, really turning in very sharply. Does like a bit of a darty race car under him, but he's saying, you know, this car they hope they'll be able to match the Ferraris with, particularly in terms of tyre wear as well.
Yeah, basically the Porsche is a well-sorted car. They know exactly what they need to get the best out of it, and Ortelli's doing a great job at the moment. He's producing the goods in the practice. As long as he can keep this neat now, then you know, he could be well on to challenge the JMB car, but he just doesn't need to make any mistakes. Nice
and aggressive through the chicane, and managed to avoid too much wheel spin there out of the tight left-hander.
Certainly pushing quite hard.
He certainly is. Little lock up there, that'll cost him a fraction. Now, we don't have the split times to judge it on.
Oh, he's on the grass there.
Yes,
that could have cost him maybe a tenth.
There goes all that traction. And again, you can see him trail braking down there as he turns in.
You see the car bouncing a lot more on the curves compared to the Ferrari. It doesn't look quite so nice there.
Very softly sprung, 141, 159, not fast enough. He goes second. So Pescatori has pole for Ferrari. Yeah, he says we've been working a lot on the setup of the car, particularly with regards to the race. Super pole, I've really just tried to push the car personally 100%, and it came out very well indeed. So it's Lister on pole in the GT class, Ferrari on pole in NGT. And in 4th place in the GT category is the Belmondo Viper, and that was driven by Duez and Babini. 3rd fastest is the Labra competition car. Vincent Voss qualified the car that he will share in the race with Carl Rosenblad. Who else but Christophe Bouchou doing the superstar job in Superpole? He'll share that car with reigning NGT champ David Terrian. Nikolaus Springer is the 2nd driver of the number 14 Lister Storm. It was Jamie Campbell-Walter, though, who planted the car on pole for the race.